There are moments that change you forever, not loud ones, but quiet moments, hard lessons, invisible breakthroughs. In this video, I want to walk with you through 10 life lessons that shaped me and might just shape you too. I never planned to learn patience, honestly. I thought it was something weak people talked about when they had no choice. I believed in speed, in pressure, in pushing. I wanted results now, answers now, change now. But life had other plans. It gave me delays instead of progress. It gave me silence instead of replies. It gave me long nights, longer days, and no fast-forward button. At first, I fought it. I got angry. I complained. I even blamed people who weren't the problem. But slowly, painfully, I began to see something I had never noticed before. The moments I hated most were the moments building me the most. The word patience wasn't punishing me. It was preparing me. When I was younger, I thought winners were the loudest, the fastest, the ones who always looked busy. Now I know better. Some of the strongest people I've ever met waited in silence while the world forgot their name. They kept working. They kept believing, even when nobody was watching. That's real strength. And it starts with one word: patience. Let me tell you something personal. My biggest breakthrough didn't come from talent. It didn't come from speed. It came from consistency during moments when nothing was working, from showing up when no one cared, from writing when no one was reading, from recording when no one was listening. I wasn't fast, but I was faithful, and in the end, that's what carried me through. You don't have to be the fastest. You just have to keep going. That's what patience is really about. Not waiting with your arms crossed, but waiting with your hands still working. Not sitting still and hoping, but walking forward, even when you're not sure where the road will lead. That's how you build the kind of life that lasts. Here's something I learned that you might need to hear. Speed builds followers. Patience builds legacy. I'll say it again for the people in the back. Speed builds attention, but patience builds impact. The world might cheer for those who move fast, but the people they remember, the ones who actually change something, are the ones who took time to grow something real. And you, right now, might be growing something real, even if it feels invisible, even if no one claps. You're still building, and that matters. People often talk about patience in work, but few talk about how much it matters in love. And yet, that's where I learned one of my deepest lessons. There was someone I cared about deeply, but we were not in the same rhythm. I wanted answers. I wanted clarity. I wanted to fix things now. But love doesn't always move fast. Sometimes it moves through silence, space, and uncertainty. And it was there, in that silence. I had to learn a new kind of patience. You see, patience isn't just about waiting. It's about how you wait. You can wait with anger, or you can wait with faith. You can wait with fear, or you can wait with quiet preparation. And in that dark season of my life, I chose to wait differently. Instead of asking, "Why is it taking so long?" I started asking, "What can I become while I wait?" That one shift That one question changed everything. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Patience is not passive. It's not weak. It's not lazy. Patience is active training. It's the invisible gym for your character. It's the long road that tests who you are when no one claps and no one sees. And most of all, it's how you prepare for the moment you're praying for. People look at success and say, wow, it happened overnight. But they never see the 1,000 quiet nights before that. The days when you kept going without proof. The moments when you doubted everything except the dream. Inside you, that's where real success is born. Not in speed, not in shortcuts, but in one word: patience. Let me tell you a story about someone I met on a train. I don't remember his name, but I'll never forget his story. He was sitting across from me, wearing a worn-out coat and holding a notebook full of scribbles. At first, I thought he was a student. Then I noticed he had gray hair. We started talking, and I asked him what he was writing. He smiled and said, "My first novel." I nodded. "That's amazing. When did you start it?" He looked up, calm and proud. 22 years ago." I blinked. "Sorry, did you say 22 years? He laughed gently. "Yes, I write a little every day. Sometimes just a sentence, sometimes a page. I've rewritten it 10 times, but I'm still in love with it. I believe it's not finished growing yet, and neither am I." I sat there in silence, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I had just seen something rare. True patience. The kind that doesn't complain. The kind that doesn't compare. The kind that trusts the process, even when the world rushes past. That man will never be famous. His book might never become a bestseller. But in my heart, he taught me more than most successful people ever could. He taught me that real artists, real dreamers, and real builders respect the timing of their craft. They don't chase applause, they chase depth, and depth takes time. We live in a world that wants everything now. Fast money, fast love, fast success. But here's the truth most people avoid. Anything that arrives too fast leaves just as quickly. Fast results fade. Fast attention disappears. Fast fame forgets you. But when you build slowly, when you water your dream one drop at a time, something different happens. Your roots grow deep. And what has deep roots can survive any storm. I know what you might be thinking, but I've been patient for years, and nothing has changed. I understand. I've felt that too. It's one of the heaviest feelings in the world, being patient with no sign of reward. But I need you to hear this. Patience is not punishment. It's protection. Sometimes life holds things back from you, not because you're not ready to have them, but because you're not ready to hold them. Big blessings require big character. And character isn't built in a moment. It's built in the waiting. There were days I wanted to scream. Days I thought about giving up completely, not just on the goal, but on myself. But each time I came close, one memory, one lesson, one voice pulled me back. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was a quiet whisper. You've come this far. Don't rush now. Let it grow. And slowly, I began to understand patience isn't what slows you down. It's what keeps you aligned. It's what makes sure the goal doesn't grow faster than your heart. It's what turns raw effort into real excellence. Let me ask you something. What are you waiting for right now? A job, a breakthrough, a person to understand you, your English to finally sound natural? Whatever it is, I want you to hold this truth close. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where growth needs you to be. I want to talk about something that's hard to admit. What do you do when someone else wins before you? What do you feel when your friend gets promoted, but you've been working just as hard? What do you feel when someone starts their English YouTube channel and in 3 months they're already famous while you're still stuck trying to fix your microphone? It's not jealousy. Not exactly. It's a quiet pain, a voice that whispers, "Why not me?" I've felt that voice many times. One of the worst moments was when someone I knew, someone I had helped, actually suddenly skyrocketed in their career. They got everything I had been working for. The recognition, the money, the platform, even the words I used to say, now said by them, but louder. And I sat there, alone, wondering, was all my patience a waste? But what I didn't realize at the time was that I was growing something deeper. While they were chasing visibility, I was building substance. While they were going wide, I was going deep. And over time, something amazing happened. People started noticing the difference. They didn't just hear my words. They felt them. Because when your growth is slow, your roots grow strong. And strong roots, they hold steady, even when the wind comes. Let me tell you something personal. My biggest breakthrough didn't come from talent. It didn't come from speed. It came from consistency during moments when nothing was working. From showing up when no one cared. From writing when no one was reading. From recording when no one was listening. I wasn't fast, but I was faithful. And in the end, that's what carried me through. You don't have to be the fastest. You just have to keep going. That's what patience is really about. Not waiting with your arms crossed, but waiting with your hands still working. Not sitting still and hoping, but walking forward, even when you're not sure where the road will lead. That's how you build the kind of life that lasts. Here's something I learned that you might need to hear. Speed builds followers. Patience builds legacy. I'll say it again for the people in the back. Speed builds attention, but patience builds impact. The world might cheer for those who move fast, but the people they remember, the ones who actually change something, are the ones who took time to grow something real. And you, right now, might be growing something real. Even if it feels invisible, even if no one claps, you're still building. And that matters. People often talk about patience in work, but few talk about how much it matters in love. And yet, that's where I learned one of my deepest lessons. There was someone I cared about deeply, but we were not in the same rhythm. I wanted answers. I wanted clarity. I wanted to fix things now. But love doesn't always move fast. Sometimes it moves through silence, space, and uncertainty. And it was there, in that silence, I had to learn a new kind of patience. Not the patience of waiting for a text back. No, that's too simple. I'm talking about the patience to let someone grow without forcing their journey to match yours. The patience to sit with your own fears without pushing them onto the person you love. The patience to say, I'll be here. I'm not rushing. I'm listening. I'm learning. And you know what? That patience didn't guarantee a happy ending. But it did give me peace. Because even if things didn't work out the way I imagined, I knew I had shown up with presence, not pressure. That kind of patience isn't weakness. It's emotional maturity. It's love without control. It's care without condition. It's showing up fully, even when nothing is promised. And that's the kind of patience I've learned to carry into every relationship, family, friends, even strangers. Because everyone's journey is different. And real love doesn't rush healing. Now let me shift gears for a moment. Because patience has also taught me something important about speaking English. Yes, that's right. You see, I used to rush every sentence. I thought if I spoke faster, I would sound smarter, or more fluent, or more confident. But what actually happened? I stumbled, I choked, I forgot words, and worst of all, I felt fake. One day, someone told me, fluency isn't speed, it's flow. And that changed everything. So I slowed down. I breathed between sentences. I let pauses happen. I gave myself space to think. And slowly, my voice changed. Not just in English, but in life. I started sounding like me. Not like a copy, not like a robot, not like someone trying too hard to be perfect. Just me, present, honest, real. And that's what I want for you to stop chasing fast English and start embracing real English. The kind that carries emotion. The kind that pauses when your heart needs a moment. The kind that says what matters, even if it takes time to say it. That's what native speakers do. That's what confident speakers do. And that's what you can do. Starting today. Because patience, in language, is what builds rhythm. And rhythm is what makes people listen. You don't need to rush. You don't need to compete. You just need to grow your way, your speed. And the English voice you're building, it's not late. It's just becoming. Let's talk about something most people never see. The strength behind a quiet person. Have you ever met someone who doesn't talk much? But when they do, every word feels powerful. They don't rush to answer. They don't try to impress you. They just sit there, calm, listening, present. That's not weakness. That's not shyness. That's inner power. And often, that power is born from patience. I used to think I had to speak quickly to be respected. But now I understand. The most powerful speakers don't push. They pause. They speak with intention, not speed. They don't throw words. They carry them, one by one, and people listen. Because the message is clear, the energy is real. You don't remember the fastest voice in the room. You remember the voice that made you feel something. And patience is what gives that voice space to breathe. One day, I gave a short talk to a group of students. I was nervous, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted to say it right. I had practiced the words, rehearsed every line, timed it down to the second. But when I got up there, I saw their eyes, tired, distracted, somewhere else. So I stopped. I took a breath. I closed my notes, and I spoke slowly from the heart. I don't know what you're going through right now, but if no one has told you this today, you're not behind. You're not broken. You're just growing slowly. Silence filled the room. No one moved. No one blinked. I kept going. Gently. No rush. No pressure. And when I finished, they stood up and clapped. Not because I was loud. Not because I was clever. But because I was real. And that only happened because I let patience guide my voice. You see, most of life isn't lived in big moments. It's lived in small spaces between those moments. In the wait between questions and answers. In the pause before we speak. In the time between where we are and where we hope to be. And in those spaces. Patience becomes your teacher. It teaches you to trust, to breathe, to grow, not to prove something, but to become something. And that kind of growth, it doesn't just change your life, it changes your soul. I promised I'd tell you when patience finally paid off. So here it is. It didn't happen with a spotlight. It didn't come with applause. It came quietly. I had been working on a project for 3 years. 3 years of writing, editing, fixing, waiting. Sometimes it felt like I was building something no one would ever see. Sometimes it felt like I was wasting my time. I watched others rise faster, get recognized quicker, earn more, be seen more, and me, still behind. The scenes, still invisible. But I kept going, not because I felt brave, but because something inside me whispered, don't leave before the miracle. Then one day, I woke up to an email. Just one. From someone I didn't know. It said, I found your work by accident. I just wanted to say, it saved me. I was going to give up on myself, but your words reminded me that I'm still growing. Thank you. I stared at that message, and I cried, not because I was famous, not because I was successful, but because my quiet work, my patient effort, had finally reached someone's heart. And in that moment, I realized something that changed my life. Impact is not always loud. Sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's one sentence. And that's enough. You see, patience doesn't always bring you what you expected. Sometimes it brings you something better. It doesn't always give you the prize. Sometimes it gives you the proof that your journey wasn't a waste. It gives you the kind of success that can't be measured in numbers. Peace, growth, self-respect, quiet joy. The kind of success no one can take from you. So let me tell you this. From one real voice to another, if you're doing the work, if you're showing up even when it's hard, if you're walking forward even when the road disappears, please don't give up. Not now. Not yet. Because what you're building with patience may not be visible yet, but it is becoming powerful. And one day, it will bloom. You know, I used to think patience was about the outside world, waiting for people, waiting for answers, waiting for results. But the more I lived, the more I realized patience is really about you. It's about your relationship with uncertainty, with discomfort, with the silence between your dreams and reality. And if you listen closely, that silence, it speaks. It says, keep becoming, keep breathing. You're not behind. You're just in process. Patience taught me who I really am. Not when things were easy, but when nothing worked. And I kept going anyway. That's where I met the strongest version of myself. Not on the mountaintop, but in the valley. Still walking, still believing, even when everything inside me said, stop. That's the real win. Not a trophy, not a title, not a viral video, or a perfect result, but becoming someone who doesn't quit on themselves. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. And maybe that's what patience has been teaching you too. Maybe it's not delaying your life. Maybe it's shaping your life quietly, softly, from the inside out. So here's what I want to leave you with. Not a lesson, not a quote, just a letter from me to you. Dear you, I know it's hard. I know you've waited longer than you thought you could. I know the world feels fast, and you feel forgotten. But you are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. Keep going. Even if it's slow, even if it's quiet, even if no one claps, because some of the most beautiful things in life take time, and you are one of those things. With all my heart, I believe in your slow miracle. Keep becoming. I'm right here with you. This was one word, one life lesson. Today's word, patience. And I hope it found a place in your heart. If it did, come back. Next time, we'll explore another word and another step in the journey of becoming. Until then, stay patient, stay real, stay becoming. I didn't always know what courage meant. I thought it was something big, loud, heroic, flashy. Like jumping into fire, running into danger, shouting truth in a silent room. But the older I got, the more I realized something. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, speak now. And one day, a regular, ordinary day, I found myself in a moment that changed my definition forever. I was sitting across from someone I respected, someone with more experience, more power, more voice. I had something on my heart, something I knew needed to be said, something no one else would say. And I was afraid. I was sitting in that chair, feeling small in a room that felt too big. The air was still, the clock was ticking, and my heartbeat. It was louder than both. Across from me was someone I admired, someone older, smarter, respected. And in that moment, I had something to say, something honest, something true. But I hesitated. Because what I needed to say might not be welcome. It might make things uncomfortable. It might make me look weak, or even disrespectful. And for a few seconds, I wanted to stay quiet, to nod, smile, play it safe. But something deeper in me whispered, if you don't speak now, you'll carry this forever. So I took a breath, and I spoke. I won't lie, my voice shook a little. I told the truth as clearly as I could. I didn't attack. I didn't blame, but I said what needed to be said. And when I finished, silence. That kind of silence that lasts just long enough to make you doubt everything. And then the person looked at me. And said, "Thank you." Just that. Not with anger, not with resistance, but with something real, something I didn't expect. Respect. And that's the moment I learned something. Courage isn't about feeling ready. It's about speaking anyway. It's not about never being scared. It's about doing it with the fear still in your chest. Courage doesn't mean loud. It doesn't mean perfect. It means true. And that moment, that one breath of honesty in a room of silence, taught me a new kind of power. There's a story I don't like telling, because it's not about courage. It's about the time I didn't speak up, the time I let fear win. It was years ago. I was younger, still trying to figure out who I was. Someone said something in a meeting about me. Not cruel, but wrong. Not aggressive, but unfair. It made my stomach twist. Every part of me wanted to raise my hand, to say, "That's not what happened." To say, "Please don't speak about me like that." But I stayed quiet. I looked down, smiled politely, pretended it didn't matter. But it did matter. Because later that day, when I was alone, I replayed that moment in my head 100 times, and every time I imagined myself speaking, not to fight, not to attack, just to be real, to be honest. But the truth is, I didn't, and that silence haunted me for months, not because of what they said, but because of what I didn't say. That was the moment I realized silence can feel safe in the moment, but heavy in the heart. And sometimes, the thing you regret most is the moment you held back your truth. Courage doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes it just taps you on the shoulder and asks, "Will you speak now?" Even if your voice shakes. And back then, I said no. But I promised myself, next time, I will say yes. After that moment of silence, the one I regretted for years, I knew something had to change, but I didn't know how. How do you rebuild courage when your own silence betrayed you? How do you find your voice when the last time you needed it, it didn't show up? I didn't start with big speeches. I didn't run into conflict. I started small, tiny, actually. I started by saying what I really felt, in safe spaces, with people who cared, with friends who listened. It began with simple things like, "I'm not okay today," or "I actually don't agree with that," or "I need a little space right now." And slowly, I started hearing myself again. Not the edited version, not the polished voice, but the real one. And each time I told the truth, even a little one, I felt a spark come back. Because courage isn't about being loud. It's about being honest. Then something happened that changed me. I was with a group of people, and someone was being talked down to, softly, casually, but unfairly. They laughed it off, trying to stay calm. But I saw it. Their smile didn't reach their eyes, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to be in their place, to stay quiet, to feel alone in the room. This time, I didn't hesitate. I said, gently, "Hey, let's be kind." That didn't feel right. Silence. For a second. Then someone else nodded, and the tone shifted. Later, that person pulled me aside and said, "Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything, but you did, and it helped." And in that moment, I realized courage isn't just for you. It frees other people too. Sometimes your voice gives someone else their voice back. And that, my friend, is how courage multiplies. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize telling the truth might cost them something. For me, that moment came on a quiet Thursday afternoon. I was working for someone who didn't value honesty, only control, only yes-men. And for a long time, I stayed quiet, smiled, agreed, avoided conflict. But inside, I was shrinking. One day, I was asked to do something that felt wrong. Not illegal, not dramatic. Just dishonest. And everything in me said, "This is your moment. This is where you decide who you are." I took a deep breath, and I said no. Not rudely, not emotionally. Just truthfully, calmly. I don't feel comfortable doing that. It goes against my values. And just like that, I felt the mood change. The air got colder. The smile disappeared, and within a week, I was let go. I wish I could tell you I felt strong, but I didn't. I felt scared, hurt, shaken. I had lost my income, my routine, my place. But what I didn't lose was my peace. And in that silence, I heard something I hadn't heard in a long time. My own self-respect. Courage doesn't always reward you right away. Sometimes it takes something from you, a job, a title, a relationship. But what it gives back is something no one else can give you. Clarity, self-trust, freedom, because you spoke up and didn't betray yourself. I used to think brave people weren't afraid. I thought courage meant standing tall, voice steady, eyes clear. No doubt, no shaking, no second thoughts. But that's not what I felt when I stood up, when I spoke out, when I finally told the truth. I was scared. My hands trembled. My voice cracked. My stomach turned. And for a long time, I thought that meant I was weak. But I was wrong. Fear is not failure. Fear is proof that you're doing something that matters. Because if it didn't matter, you wouldn't feel scared at all. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to keep moving with fear beside you, to feel the heat in your chest, and still say what needs to be said, to look at the risk and still choose the truth. That's what real bravery looks like. Not clean, not perfect, but real. There's a small practice I still use today. Every time I feel afraid to speak up, I call it Speak One Truth. Just one. Not the whole story, not every opinion, not a perfect argument, just one sentence. One clear, honest truth. Something like, "This doesn't feel right to me. I need a moment to think. I'm not sure I agree with that." Simple, soft, true. That one sentence, it opens the door. It invites your voice back into the room. And once you've said the first truth, the next one comes easier. You don't have to win. You don't have to be loud. You don't even have to change anyone's mind. You just have to show up for yourself. I didn't know that courage would change my relationships, but it did. Not all at once, and not always gently, but over time. It changed everything. You see, when you start telling the truth, not just to strangers, but to the people closest to you, the room shifts. Some people lean in. They hear your voice and say, "Thank you for saying that." Others lean away because honesty holds up a mirror, and not everyone wants to look. There was someone I loved deeply for years. We shared laughter, memories, hope, but we also shared silence. Too many unspoken things. I avoided the hard conversations. So did they. We smiled through tension, agreed through discomfort. Until one day, I couldn't anymore. I sat across from them and said, "We need to talk." Not because I want to argue, but because I care. And for the first time, I shared how I really felt. My fears, my confusion, my needs. The conversation didn't go the way I hoped. It was hard, messy, emotional, and eventually, we went separate ways. But you know what? I don't regret it. Because for the first time in that relationship, I chose truth over comfort. And that choice? It didn't save the relationship, but it saved me. That's the risk of courage. It won't always protect the connection, but it will protect your soul. Because when you stop shrinking to make others comfortable, you finally start growing into who you really are. I want to tell you this. If you're listening right now, courage may not fix everything, but silence almost never fixes anything. If something needs to be said, say it with love. Say it with calm. But say it, because silence builds walls, but truth builds bridges, even if they're slow, shaky, and take time to walk across. Courage has cost me things. It's cost me comfort. It's cost me approval. Sometimes, it's even cost me people I didn't want to lose. But here's what it gave me in return: a voice I can trust, a soul I can sleep with, and a life I don't have to perform. That's the real reward of courage. Not that you win every argument, not that you get everything you want, but that you get to live in alignment with who you really are. No mask, no pretending, just truth. And let me tell you something you might need to hear today. You don't have to wait until you feel strong to be brave. You just have to begin. Begin with a whisper, a sentence, a moment. Say, "What's on your heart?" Gently ask the hard question calmly. Stand your ground, even if your legs shake. That is courage. Not perfection, not fearlessness, just the willingness to be real, even when it's hard. So if you're sitting with a truth inside you, a truth you've buried, avoided, or feared, this is your moment, not to explode, not to fight, but to speak, to free your voice, to take one small, honest breath and say, "This matters to me, and I have to say it." Because the moment you speak, the moment you stop shrinking, you become someone powerful. Not because you control the world, but because you no longer let fear control you. This was one word, one life lesson. Today's word: courage. And I hope it gave you the strength to return to your voice. If it did, I'll see you in the next episode. We'll share another word, another story, another piece of truth for your journey. Until then, be brave, be honest, be you. I used to explain myself all the time, explain why I was late, why I said no, why I looked tired, why I needed space. Even when no one asked, I gave reasons, justifications, stories to make people feel okay about me. But one day, I stopped, not out of anger, not to be cold, but because I realized something. Silence is also an answer, and sometimes it's the only one you need. I used to over-explain everything. If I didn't reply right away, I'd say, sorry, I was busy. I didn't forget. I wasn't ignoring you. Please don't be upset if I said no to an invitation. I'd list reasons, give context, apologize again, and hope they understood. If I looked tired, I'd rush to explain why, even if no one asked. It wasn't about being polite. It was about fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of disappointing people. Fear of not being enough. And so, I filled the space with words. Not to express myself, but to protect myself, until one day I had nothing left to say, not because I was angry, not because I didn't care, but because I was tired. Tired of defending my energy, tired of trying to be easy to like, tired of performing peace instead of living it. And that's when I discovered the power of silence, not the cold kind, not the manipulative kind, but the kind of silence that comes from self-trust. The kind that says, I don't need you to understand. I just need to be true to myself. There was a day I'll never forget. I was sitting across from someone I cared about, and once again, I was explaining myself, why I didn't answer right away, why I wasn't as cheerful as usual, why I needed time alone that week. I was gentle. I was kind. I was exhausted. And when I finished my long explanation, they said, you don't have to say all that. It's okay. Just be you. I smiled, but inside, I felt something crack, because that was the moment I realized I had been apologizing for existing, not out loud, but in all the ways I'd tried to make myself smaller, softer, easier to accept. That night, I sat with that feeling, and I asked myself, why do I feel the need to explain my every decision? Why do I keep asking for permission to be myself? And the answer hit me like a whisper I had ignored for years. Because I still thought my peace needed to be earned. Because I thought my boundaries were selfish. But they're not. They're sacred. Silence isn't shutting people out. It's letting yourself in. It's the space where you stop defending your truth and start trusting it. It's the quiet voice that says, I don't owe you a story. I owe myself my peace. It happened during a simple conversation. Someone said something about me that wasn't true. Not cruel, not loud, but wrong. They said it like it was fact. Like they knew my story better than I did. And for a second, I felt the old habit rise. The need to jump in, to defend, to clear things up so no one misunderstood me. But something stopped me. Not fear, not weakness. Just a calm voice in my chest that whispered, "Let it pass. You don't need to explain. The truth doesn't need a megaphone." So I stayed quiet. I smiled gently. I breathed. And I let the silence speak for me. And what happened next surprised me. They shifted. They paused. They corrected themselves. Slightly, the conversation moved on. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel drained. I felt free. That's the thing about silence. When it comes from peace, not pride, it changes the entire energy in the room. It doesn't argue. It doesn't react. It just holds. It holds your strength. It holds your truth. It holds your boundary without needing to prove it. Since I started living that way, people have treated me differently. Not because I became distant, not because I shut down, but because they could feel that I no longer needed to explain my worth. And when you carry that kind of stillness, people either respect it or remove themselves. Either way, you win. There was someone in my life who always pushed, not in a cruel way, but in a constant way, always asking for more time, more energy, more yes. And every time I said no, they'd ask why. Not once. Every time. Why not today? Why can't you help? Why are you pulling back? And for a long time, I answered, because I cared, because I wanted to be fair, because I didn't want to be seen as cold or selfish. But slowly, I began to feel the cost. Each explanation chipped away at my peace. Each defense made me question myself. And one day, I reached a point where I simply said, no. And when the usual questions came, I didn't answer. Not with anger, not with silence as punishment, just silence as presence. I looked them in the eyes and stayed still. They didn't like it. They asked again, pushed again. But this time, I stayed calm, centered, grounded. And eventually, they stopped asking. Not because they understood, but because they finally realized my boundary wasn't up for debate. That's the quiet power of silence. It doesn't scream. It doesn't explain itself over and over. It just stands. It becomes a wall made of calm. And sometimes that's what you need, because too much explaining, it turns your truth into a negotiation. But silence, kind, respectful silence, reminds people that your peace is not a question. It's a decision. There was a time when someone hurt me. Not with fists, not with shouting, but with something quieter. Words that cut, promises they didn't keep. A kind of slow betrayal that left no bruise, but bruised everything. And when it happened, I wanted to speak. I wanted to explain how I felt. I wanted to make them see the damage. I wanted them to understand. But something held me back. Not bitterness, not pride. Just clarity. I realized that no amount of words would make them see what they chose not to see. That my peace didn't depend on their understanding. So I chose silence, not to punish, but to protect, not to block them out, but to stay in. Stay in my calm, stay in my center, stay in the truth I no longer needed them to agree with. And something beautiful happened. Over time, The silence softened the pain. It wrapped around me like a warm coat, not cold, not sharp, just quiet. And in that quiet, I healed. That's what no one tells you. Sometimes silence is more powerful than closure. You don't always need the last word. You don't always need them to understand. You don't always need to explain your wound to the one who caused it. Sometimes you just need space and time and your own arms around your own heart. Silence doesn't always mean disconnection. Sometimes it builds something even deeper. There was someone close to me, a friend, one of those rare people who really listened. We had a strong bond, but we also had very different ways of dealing with things. I used words, they used space, and for a long time, I didn't understand that. When they didn't respond right away, I'd overthink, worry, explain myself more than necessary. Are you okay? Did I say something wrong? Let me clarify what I meant. But one day, after a long pause, they finally said, "You don't have to explain so much. I trust you, and I trust silence too." That sentence landed in my chest like peace. It reminded me that true connection doesn't need constant explaining. It needs presence. It needs mutual trust. And sometimes it just needs a little quiet. From that day on, I started practicing silence in our friendship. When they needed time, I didn't rush in. When they were quiet, I didn't fill the space. And surprisingly, we became even closer. Because my silence no longer meant absence. It meant respect. Not all relationships are built this way. But the strong ones, they learn to breathe. They learn to hold space for each other without chasing, fixing, or over-explaining. And I want you to remember this. You don't have to explain your peace to people who are already at peace with you. The right people, they don't need a paragraph to believe your heart. They can hear your silence and still feel your care. Silence used to scare me. Now, it saves me. It saves me from performing, from over-explaining, from trying to convince people who were never ready to hear me. It doesn't mean I stopped caring. It means I started caring in a new way, a way that included myself, because there's a kind of peace you only find when you stop trying to be understood and start trying to be whole. There are still moments I feel the pull, moments I want to jump in and explain why I am the way I am. But then I pause, and I breathe, and I remember, if I know my heart, and I know my truth, then that's enough. I don't need to shout it, or defend it, or decorate it with extra words. I just need to live it, softly, firmly, honestly. So if you're someone who feels like you're always explaining yourself, always justifying, softening, translating who you are for others, this is for you, dear you. You don't have to make everyone understand. You don't have to shrink your truth into bite-sized pieces to be accepted. You don't have to apologize for your timing, your boundaries, your quiet. Let silence speak for you sometimes. Let your energy explain what words cannot. Let your calm be your clarity. And when the world tries to pull too much from you, return to your stillness. You are not rude. You are not cold. You are clear. And that is a beautiful kind of power. With love, the quieter, Stronger version of you. This was one word, one life lesson. Today's word, silence. And if you're still here with me, maybe it's because you needed permission to speak less and mean more. I'll see you in the next episode for another word, another story, another quiet breakthrough. Until then, stay soft, stay still, stay true. There was a time I couldn't see the road ahead. I woke up each day with a heavy chest, not because of what had happened, but because I didn't believe anything better was coming. Everything felt stuck, still, like life had closed a door and locked it behind me. People said, stay positive. People said, this too shall pass. People said a lot of things, but nothing reached me until one small thing did. A note, left by someone I barely knew. It said only this: don't give up. You don't know what's waiting for you yet. That note didn't fix everything. It didn't take away my fear. It didn't erase the disappointment. It didn't magically unlock the future. But it did something more important. It made me pause. It made me breathe. It made me stop spiraling, just long enough to consider. What if I'm not done yet? What if something beautiful is still ahead, and I just can't see it right now? That tiny shift, from it's over to maybe not yet. That's what hope really is. Hope isn't loud. It doesn't always show up with fireworks. Sometimes it's a whisper, a thread, a quiet breath in the middle of the night that says, try again tomorrow. I wish I could tell you I bounced back right away, that the next day everything got better. But that's not how it worked. Hope didn't give me a finish line. It gave me a flashlight, just enough to take one step, then another, then one more, until slowly I found my way forward. There was a day I almost quit completely. Quit the project, quit the dream, quit trying to believe that things could be different. I had poured everything into something I believed in. Time, effort, heart, but nothing worked. Doors stayed closed. People didn't show up. Even the ones who once believed in me went silent. And I remember thinking, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this isn't meant for me. I was sitting alone that night. No music, no distractions, just silence. And in that silence, I felt something unexpected. Not confidence, not motivation. Just softness. A small voice inside me that didn't promise anything, but gently asked, what if you just keep going a little longer? What if the breakthrough is waiting around a corner you can't see yet? And for some reason, I listened. I didn't jump out of bed. I didn't find sudden strength. But I chose not to quit, not yet, and that was enough. Because hope doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just says, stay. One more day. I think that's what saved me. Not some big change. Not a miracle. Just that tiny thread of hope I held onto, even when everything around me felt broken. Hope isn't always a feeling. Sometimes it's just a choice. The choice to get out of bed when nothing feels exciting. The choice to answer a message even when you feel empty. The choice to make tea, to clean the room, to breathe slowly. Those tiny things. They don't look like hope, but they are. Because when you've been in the dark, even the smallest act of living is an act of courage. There was a time when I couldn't feel hope, but someone else carried it for me. A friend who kept checking in, even when I didn't reply. A stranger who left a kind comment when I was feeling invisible. A family member who smiled at me like I was still full of light, even when I felt dim. And I realized sometimes hope doesn't come from inside you. Sometimes it comes from the people who refuse to give up on you, even when you've given up on yourself. I don't remember every detail from those hard days, but I remember the hands that held me up, the eyes that didn't look away, the quiet presence of people who didn't fix me, but stayed. And in that staying, I found something stronger than motivation. I found belief, not just in myself, but in the idea that maybe life still had something waiting for me. After a while, something unexpected happened. I started giving hope to others. Even before I felt full myself, I wasn't trying to be wise. I wasn't trying to inspire anyone. I was just speaking gently from where I was. One day, a friend told me they were tired, not just physically, but tired in their heart. They said, "I feel like I'm doing everything right, but nothing's working." I didn't give a speech. I didn't tell them what to do. I just said one thing: "You're not failing. You're just early." They looked at me like I had said magic. Not because I solved anything, but because I gave them a new lens. That's what hope is. Not a perfect plan, not a solution, just a new way to look at the same pain and say, maybe there's more to come. Maybe this isn't the end of the sentence yet. That moment reminded me, hope isn't something you give once you're healed. It's something you give while you're still becoming. You don't need to be whole to speak life into someone else. You just need to show up, honestly, softly, with the kind of light that says, "I know this darkness, and I know you're not alone." There was a time when I didn't trust my dreams anymore. Not because I didn't have them, but because I was scared to get my hopes up again. I had wanted things before, deeply. I had worked for them, prayed for them, believed in them, and then watched them fall apart. So I started protecting myself from hope. I told myself, don't dream too big. Don't get too excited. Don't expect much. I called it realism, but if I'm honest, it was fear. Then someone said something I'll never forget. They said, hope doesn't guarantee you won't get hurt. It just guarantees that pain won't be the end of your story. And that truth, it cracked something open in me, because I finally understood. Hope isn't about avoiding pain. It's about daring to believe there's life after pain. That even if the plan fails, the person doesn't. That even if the door closes, another might open, one you never imagined. Hope is not the opposite of honesty. It's the partner of honesty. It sits beside your fear and still says, let's try again tomorrow. It walks with your grief and still whispers, there's more to come. Since then, I've let myself dream again, not with blind certainty, but with soft strength, because I know now, even if things fall apart again, I won't fall apart with them. I've grown roots that hold, and those roots were planted in hope. There's one thing I know for sure. Hope doesn't mean you always feel strong. Sometimes It's just the decision not to give up. It doesn't mean the path is clear. It means you're still walking. It doesn't mean the pain is gone. It means you still believe something meaningful can rise from it. And in my life, hope hasn't always shouted, but it has always returned, like a sunrise, like a breath, like a whisper after silence. So if you're listening right now, and you feel tired, heavy, alone, this is for you, dear you. I know what it's like to wonder if things will ever feel light again. I know what it's like to smile in public and ache in private, to look strong outside, but feel like you're unraveling inside. And I also know this. You are not finished. You are not failing. You are just in the middle. You don't have to see the whole path. You just have to take one step. You don't have to feel hope every second. You just have to leave a little room for it to come back. Because it will come back. Maybe not loudly, maybe not today, but quietly, faithfully, gently. Hope never forgets how to find you. With all my heart, keep going. I believe in what's still possible for you. This was one word, one life lesson, today's word. Hope. And if this reached your heart, hold on to it. Come back whenever you need to be reminded, even when everything feels lost. Hope hasn't lost you. I'll see you in the next episode with another word, another story, and another reason to believe. Until then, stay breathing, stay becoming, stay here. I used to chase everything. More money, more success, more attention, more proof that I was doing well. And the strange part, the more I got, the emptier I felt, because no matter what I achieved, no matter how many boxes I checked, there was always another one. Another goal, another reason to feel like I wasn't enough. Yet. Until one day, something changed. And it didn't happen in a moment of glory. It happened on an ordinary morning, in a quiet kitchen, with a cup of tea in my hand. And for some reason, I looked around and thought, what if I already have enough? That morning, something felt different. The world hadn't changed. My problems were still there. My dreams hadn't suddenly come true. But as I stood there, holding that warm cup in my hands, feeling the quiet hum of the world waking up outside, I realized I wasn't chasing anything in that moment. I wasn't performing. I wasn't comparing. I wasn't scrolling or striving. I was just breathing. And in that breath, I found something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. I looked around. The room wasn't fancy. The light wasn't perfect. But it was mine. And somehow, that felt like enough. For the first time in a long time, I didn't ask, what's missing? I asked, what's already here? And what I found surprised me. Not because it was new, but because I had been too busy to see it. The little things, the quiet things, the steady things I had taken for granted. A roof, a voice, a body that still carries me, a few real people who care, and a heart still beating, still trying. Gratitude didn't make my problems disappear, but it made my perspective deeper. It didn't solve everything, but it gave me something stronger than a solution. It gave me presence. I remember a day when everything went wrong, the kind of day where nothing seemed to work. Late start, bad news, Plans cancelled, unexpected costs, 100 little frustrations, one after another. By the afternoon, I was done. I sat down, tired, tight-chested, and ready to give in to that voice that says, "See? Nothing's going right. Just forget it." But something in me paused. And instead of collapsing into the frustration, I asked myself one small question. Is there still something I can be thankful for right now? It wasn't easy. It felt forced, even silly. But I looked around and started slowly. I have water. I have my hands. I have a friend I could call if I really needed to. I have time to try again tomorrow. They weren't big things. They weren't fancy. But they were enough to shift the weight on my chest. That's when I learned this powerful truth. Gratitude doesn't mean everything's perfect. It means something is still worth honoring, even when things aren't perfect. And when I started doing that more often, when I started looking for what was already good, I began to notice how rich my life already was. Not because I had everything, but because I could finally see what I had. There was a season in my life when comparison almost destroyed me. Every time I opened my phone, someone else was winning. Someone was traveling somewhere beautiful. Someone just got a promotion. Someone's video went viral. Someone's life looked easier, happier, fuller. And mine felt like a slow crawl through invisible work and quiet sacrifices. And every time I scrolled, a voice inside whispered, "You're behind. You're not enough yet." Until one day, I heard another voice, not loud, not online. Just the voice inside me that had grown quiet, but never left. It said, "You don't need more. You just need to notice what you already have." So I put my phone down. I walked outside, and I started paying attention, not to what was missing, but to what was present. The sunlight through the window, the sound of leaves, the way my breath still rises and falls without me asking it to. The friend who checked in, the food on my plate, simple, but enough. And just like that, the grip of comparison loosened. That day taught me gratitude doesn't just make you feel full. It makes you feel free, free from racing, free from proving, free from thinking someone else's life is more valuable than your own. Because when you truly see what you have, you realize you're already rich in ways you forgot to count. There was a man I met once, briefly. He didn't have much. He lived in a small space, shared it with others, worked long hours doing a job most people ignore. But the first time I met him, he smiled like the sun was inside him. Not fake, not forced. The kind of smile that made you stop and think, what does he know that I don't? We talked a little, and I asked him, how do you stay so happy with so little? He laughed, warm and unbothered, and said, because I don't focus on what I don't have. I thank life for what I do. I didn't know what to say. I had more than him in every measurable way. But somehow, I was the one who felt lacking. And in that moment, something shifted in me. I saw that wealth is not what's in your pocket. It's what's in your perspective. That man reminded me that you can have less and still feel full, or have everything and still Feel empty. And the difference is gratitude. Since then, I've practiced something simple every time I feel like I need more. I stop, I breathe, and I ask, have I thanked what I already have today? And every time I do, my heart softens, my mind clears, and my life feels rich again. There's something I used to do that I never noticed. Every time I made a mistake, I'd punish myself, not out loud, not in public, but in the way I spoke to myself. Why did you say that? You're not good enough. You'll never get it right. It became a habit, quiet, cruel, and constant, until one day I caught myself. I had dropped something on the floor, a small thing, and without thinking, I muttered, "UGH, you're so clumsy." But then I paused, and I asked, would I speak to someone I love that way? That was the beginning of a shift. Because I realized I had spent years being grateful for things, but not being grateful for myself. Not for my effort, not for my growth, not for the way I kept going, even when I didn't feel strong. So I started a new practice whenever I messed up. Instead of criticism, I whispered, "Thank you for trying." That sentence saved me. Because gratitude isn't just for the outside world, it's for the inner one. And when you speak with kindness to yourself, you begin to soften. You begin to trust. You begin to feel like home, inside your own skin. And the more I did that, the more I noticed something beautiful, grateful. People are not naive. They're grounded. They don't ignore their pain. They just choose to also honor their progress. They see the flaws and still find the light. And that light, it grows from within. I used to think enough was something you reached, like a goal, like a number, like a finish line that finally says, "Now you can be happy." But I know better now. Enough is not out there. It's in here. It's a feeling, not a fact. A quiet recognition of what is, instead of obsession with what's missing. It's the peace that comes not when everything is perfect, but when you're finally present. So if you're listening right now, and you're tired of chasing, tired of comparing, tired of feeling like you always need to be more, this is for you, dear you. Maybe the world taught you to keep running, to always want bigger, faster, louder, newer. But I want to remind you of something softer, something wiser. You are already standing in something valuable. Your life, your breath, your effort, your moments. Don't wait for more to feel full. Don't wait for everything to make sense to feel thankful. Because some of the most beautiful things in your life have already happened, are already here, or are quietly on their way. Look around. Slow down. Let your eyes settle on the ordinary and whisper to yourself, "This is enough. I am enough, right here, right now." With all my heart, thank you for being here. This was one word, one life lesson, today's word, gratitude. And if it helped you breathe a little softer, that's all the reason I need to keep going. I'll see you in the next episode with another word, another story, another quiet reminder of what really matters. Until then, stay grounded. Stay thankful. Stay you. No one teaches you how to fail. They teach you how to win, how to plan, how to aim high and stay focused and achieve. But when it all falls apart, when the thing you built breaks, when the dream you held slips through your hands, when your best effort still isn't enough, no one prepares you for that. I wasn't ready either. And the first time I truly failed, it felt like my entire identity shattered with it. The first time I truly failed, it wasn't quiet. It was public, visible, undeniable. A project I believed in, poured myself into, gave everything for, and then it crashed. Not slowly, not softly, but all at once. Plans unraveled, support disappeared, people backed away. Some even whispered behind closed doors. And I was left there, not just without a win, but without a direction. I remember sitting in the aftermath. No noise, no messages, just me, and the echo of what didn't work. And the question that kept circling in my mind, was all of this for nothing? That's what failure does at first. It empties you. It makes you question your worth, your instincts, your time, your voice. But slowly, very slowly, that same silence began to teach me. Not with comfort, not with kindness, but with truth. When everything fell apart, I didn't just lose a project. I lost a version of myself. The version that thought success was the only proof of value. The version that thought as long as I worked hard, things would go my way. The version that tied my identity to being the one who always shows up strong. But failure has a way of stripping all that away. And when it did, what was left? Just me. No titles, no achievements, just a person who had to face himself. And honestly, at first, I didn't like what I saw. Because so much of who I thought I was had been built on doing, on achieving, on what I could prove. But in the silence that came after failure, I stopped running, and I started listening. I asked questions I'd never asked before. Who am I when nothing's working? Who am I when no one's watching? Who am I without the win? And the answers didn't come quickly, but they came honestly. There was a moment, not long after everything fell apart, where I sat alone and said something I didn't expect. I said, maybe this didn't happen to me. Maybe this happened for me. Not because it felt good, not because I liked what happened, but because something deeper in me started to understand. Failure isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's redirection. The thing I thought I wanted, it wasn't aligned with who I was becoming. The door that closed, it forced me to look at windows I had ignored. And the pain I felt, it slowed me down, just enough to notice what I had been running past. That's the strange gift of failure. It ruins the plan, but reveals the truth. One day, I looked back on everything that fell apart, and for the first time, I was thankful. Not for the heartbreak, not for the loss, but for the clarity it gave me. Because I wasn't chasing approval anymore. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just rebuilding from truth, from center, from what actually matters. One of the hardest parts of failing was watching people leave. People who used to check in, people who used to clap, people who once called me inspiring. And suddenly, when the spotlight was gone, so were they. At first, I took it personally. I asked myself, Was I only valuable when I was winning? Did they care about me, or just my momentum? But the more I sat with it, the more I understood something painful, but freeing. Failure doesn't just reveal your flaws. It reveals your circle, the people who stayed. They didn't need me to impress them. They just wanted me to be okay. They saw me, not just my progress. And their presence felt different, quieter, deeper, real. That's when I realized failure doesn't just break what's false. It clears this space for what's true. Looking back, I'm thankful for the ones who left. They taught me to stop chasing people whose love depends on my performance. And I'm grateful for the ones who stayed, because they reminded me that my worth was never in the win. There's something no one tells you about failure. It's heavy at first, but freeing in the end. When the thing you feared most finally happens, and you survive it. You stop being so afraid. You stop playing small. You stop chasing perfection. You stop trying to be bulletproof, because you realize something powerful. Failure didn't break you. It woke you up. It stripped away the noise. It pulled off the mask. It showed you who you really are, and who you don't need to be anymore. And in that space, there's freedom. Freedom to begin again. Freedom to move differently. Freedom to do it your way. Not the way that once led you here. Since failing, I've made different choices. Slower ones, simpler ones, braver ones. Not because I know I won't fall again, but because now I know I can get back up. And honestly, that's what confidence really is. Not believing you'll never fail, but knowing that when you do, you won't lose yourself. I used to be terrified of failure. Now, I respect it. Because failure gave me what success never could. It gave me stillness. It gave me humility. It gave me honesty. It made me question who I was, and it helped me answer. It made me lose everything I thought I needed, and it showed me what truly matters. If you're listening right now, and something in your life has fallen apart, this is for you. Dear you, I know what it feels like to fall, to give everything, and watch it slip through your hands. To try your best, and still feel like you weren't enough. But I want you to hear this. You are not your failure. You are not your lowest moment. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are rebuilding. You are rising. And maybe this fall wasn't the end. Maybe it was the moment you finally met the real you. The one who doesn't need applause to have worth. The one who doesn't need to win to keep walking. The one who knows how to start again. Slowly, softly, with more soul than ever before. So don't run from failure. Sit with it. Listen to it. Let it teach you. Let it soften you. Let it shape something deeper inside you. And then, when you're ready, stand up, not to prove anything, just because you can. With all my heart, you are not finished. Keep becoming. This was one word, one life lesson, today's word. Failure. If this story helped you breathe a little deeper, come back next time. We'll keep walking this road. One word, one story, one truth at a time. Until then, stay soft, stay honest, stay in the fight. Discipline used to sound harsh to me, like punishment, like pressure, like waking up early for no reason, and doing things you didn't want to do. I thought discipline was for people who didn't feel, people who were cold, people who never broke down or got tired. But I was wrong. Because the day discipline showed up in my life, it wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was quiet, simple, almost invisible. And that decision, that one ordinary moment, changed the rest of my life. The truth is, I didn't wake up one day feeling strong. I didn't suddenly become disciplined overnight. In fact, it started on a day I was completely drained. I was behind on everything. I felt like a mess. I didn't want to do anything but lie down and disappear. But something small in me said, just do one thing. Just finish one small promise to yourself today. And for some reason, I listened. I didn't clean the whole house. I folded one shirt. I didn't run 5 miles. I walked for 10 minutes. I didn't finish the whole project. I wrote one honest paragraph. That's it. And strangely, I felt better. Not because it changed the world, but because it changed my relationship with myself. I kept a promise, not to anyone else, but to me. That day taught me something I'll never forget. Discipline isn't about doing everything. It's about doing something, even when it's hard. And the more I honored that voice, the stronger it became. Not louder, just steadier. Like a quiet friend who always shows up, even when motivation doesn't. For most of my life, I chased motivation. I waited to feel ready. I waited to feel excited. I waited for that perfect moment when everything felt aligned. Sometimes it came, but most of the time, it didn't. And when motivation disappeared, so did I. Until one day, I got tired of restarting. Tired of only showing up when I felt like it. Tired of abandoning myself when the feelings ran out. That's when I finally understood. Motivation is a visitor, but discipline is a roommate. It stays when you're tired. It stays when you're angry. It stays when your heart's not in it, because it remembers the why behind the work. There was a moment that proved this to me. A week when everything fell apart. Again, deadlines, stress, sleepless nights. I wanted to check out, to skip it all. But instead, I opened my notebook and I wrote for 5 minutes. Not because I was inspired, but because I had promised myself. We don't run anymore. We show up, even small. That moment didn't change the world, but it changed me. Because that's what discipline does. It builds strength in private. So one day, your results speak for you in public. There was someone I used to see every morning on my way to work. Same bench, same clothes, same quiet rhythm. He wasn't rich. He wasn't loud. He didn't even look especially motivated. But he showed up every single day, reading a book, writing notes, sometimes just breathing intentionally. I passed him dozens of times, and one day, I asked him what he was doing. He smiled and said, training my discipline, not for a goal, just for my peace. That stayed with me. Because he wasn't trying to grind. He wasn't chasing hustle. He was simply protecting his soul, one small, repeated act at a time. And I realized, discipline isn't about control. It's about caring enough about your future self to show up for them today. And slowly, I started doing the same. Not to impress anyone, not to get faster results, but to prove to myself again and again that I can be trusted. I've had seasons where I didn't believe in myself. Where the mirror looked unfamiliar, where my voice sounded unsure, where I questioned everything, including my worth. During those times, motivation was nowhere to be found. Confidence had packed its bags and left. But you know what stayed? Discipline. That quiet choice to show up, even if I didn't feel strong, even if the results weren't there yet, because each time I kept a small promise, a little piece of my confidence came back. Discipline didn't shout, "You're amazing." It whispered, "You're showing up, and that's enough for today." And the more I listened, the steadier I felt, not because I was perfect, but because I was consistent. That became my new definition of confidence, not being loud, but being loyal to myself. One morning, I woke up and realized I had become someone I could count on. And I didn't get there by forcing results. I got there by following through, on the days I didn't want to, on the days no one saw me, on the days it felt small, boring, and slow. There was a night I almost broke the streak. I had been showing up for myself for weeks, writing, moving, eating better, resting on time, keeping small promises, day by day. But that night, something inside me said, "Just skip it. You've done enough. One day won't matter." And honestly, it was tempting. I had a long day. I was exhausted. No one would know. But then another voice, smaller, quieter, spoke up, "You'll know." And that's the moment I understood something powerful. Discipline is the voice that reminds you who you're becoming, even when you're tired of being who you are. So I got up. I didn't do much, but I did something. And afterward, I felt it again. Peace. Not because I crushed a goal, but because I didn't abandon myself. That's what no one tells you. Discipline isn't about being productive. It's about being present for the version of you who deserves to be supported, not just on good days, but especially on hard ones. And every time I choose discipline now, it feels less like pressure and more like protection. I'm not punishing myself. I'm prioritizing myself. That's what discipline really is. The quietest, deepest form of self-respect. Discipline changed my life. Not in one big moment, not with loud success or overnight wins, but in the smallest ways, one choice at a time. One yes to myself, one quiet no to old habits that no longer served me. It didn't always feel heroic. In fact, most days it felt invisible. But over time, it built someone I could trust, someone I could rely on, someone I could respect, not because of what I achieved, but because of how I showed up. So if you're listening now, and you're tired of starting over, or you're in the middle of a routine that no one sees, this is for you, dear you. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do everything right. You don't have to feel motivated all the time. You just have to stay with yourself when it's boring, when it's hard, when no one claps for your effort, Because those little acts, they are changing you, not loudly, but deeply. Every time you keep a small promise, you're telling your future, I haven't given up on you. And one day, you'll look back and realize that this quiet, steady discipline was the reason everything finally started to grow. With all my heart, keep going. You're becoming someone beautiful. This was one word, one life lesson. Today's word, discipline. And if this episode helped you feel stronger, even just a little, that means the discipline is already working. I'll see you in the next episode, where one word might just change everything again. Until then, stay steady, stay kind, stay becoming. Forgiveness was never easy for me. I thought it meant pretending things didn't hurt. I thought it meant letting people off the hook. I thought it meant weakness. So I held on. To the anger, to the silence, to the story I kept repeating in my head of how I was wronged and how I deserved to stay bitter. But the truth is, holding on didn't protect me. It poisoned me. And the moment I chose to forgive, not for them, but for me, that's when everything inside me began to shift. There was someone in my life who hurt me deeply, not with their hands, but with their absence, their silence, their ability to walk away without explanation. And I held that pain for a long time, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to let it go. I thought holding on gave me power, that staying angry meant I still had control. But the truth, anger was the chain. Forgiveness was the key. It didn't happen in one moment. There was no grand apology, no movie ending. There was just exhaustion. I got tired of carrying it, tired of replaying conversations in my head that never actually happened, tired of giving my energy to someone who wasn't even in the room anymore. And one day, I whispered to myself, I release you, not because you deserve it, but because I do. That was the beginning of freedom. Not the end of the pain, but the start of healing. Because forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It just says, this moment no longer owns me. I didn't get an apology. No text, no message, no final conversation. And for a while, that was the hardest part, because in my heart, I thought, I can't let go until they say sorry. But days passed, then months, then years, and they never came back. Not to fix it, not to explain, not even to ask how I was. So I waited, and while I waited, I hurt myself. I stayed stuck, emotionally frozen in a chapter they had already closed, until one day, I had a moment of quiet clarity. I was walking, alone. The sun was setting, and I suddenly asked myself, what if this doesn't need to be finished by them? What if I get to write the ending? And in that moment, I did. I stopped waiting for closure. I stopped needing them to make it right. Instead, I made a quiet decision. I forgive you, not to fix the past, but to free my future. And when I said those words, something loosened. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave it somewhere to go. That was the day I realized forgiveness isn't always mutual. Sometimes it's something you do alone, for yourself, in silence, and even without the apology, even without the answer. I felt lighter. The strangest part about forgiveness was what it did to my body. I didn't expect that. I thought it was just emotional, a mental shift, a decision in my mind. But after I truly forgave, my shoulders dropped, my breath deepened, my chest felt lighter. For the first time in a long time, I felt space inside me that wasn't filled with tension. And that's when I realized unforgiveness doesn't just live in your heart. It lives in your muscles, your posture, your sleep, your tone, your energy. And when you release it, you don't just heal your story. You heal your nervous system. But the hardest part? It wasn't forgiving them, it was forgiving myself for not knowing better, for staying too long, for letting it affect me for so many months, even years. I was angry at myself, not just for what happened, but for how long I let it live inside me. And that anger, that's what kept me stuck the longest, until one day I said the words I had never said before. I forgive you, too, for not having the tools, for trying your best, for surviving the only way you knew how. That's when the real healing started. The day I truly forgave myself, something inside me shifted. Not instantly, not with a celebration, just quietly. Like my heart took one long breath and whispered, "Thank you for finally letting go." I used to carry everything I ever did wrong, every mistake, every decision I wished I could change, every version of me I judged from the outside. But that day, I saw myself differently. I saw a younger version of me, trying, learning, reacting from pain I hadn't processed, looking for love in places that were never safe. And I didn't feel shame anymore. I felt compassion. I said it softly, "I forgive you. You were doing the best you could with what you had. And I'm not going to punish you anymore." And just like that, the guilt stopped running the show. That's what self-forgiveness does. It doesn't pretend the past didn't happen. It just releases you from the belief that you have to keep paying for it. It says, "You've learned. You've grown. Now let's move forward, gently." After forgiveness, something unexpected returned. Joy. Not the loud kind. Not laughter and fireworks, but a quiet kind, like light slowly creeping into a dark room. I hadn't even realized how heavy I'd been, how tightly I'd been clenching joy out of my life. Because when you carry resentment, even the good moments feel muted. But once I let go, joy had space to come back in. Smiling felt softer. Music felt richer. The days felt lighter, not because everything changed, but because I had. And no, I didn't trust everyone again. Forgiveness didn't mean I forgot, or that I welcomed certain people back into my life. It just meant I stopped letting them live rent-free in my heart. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. It's release. You can forgive someone and still protect your peace. You can wish them well and still walk away. That's not bitterness. That's maturity. There was a moment, not long ago, when I was thinking about what happened. I remembered the pain, the silence, the part of me that wanted justice. But then a stronger voice inside whispered, "You don't need justice to feel peace. You just need release." And that was enough. Forgiveness doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. It doesn't erase what happened. but it releases the grip it has on you. It lets you breathe deeper, sleep softer, speak kinder, not just to others, but to yourself. Forgiveness isn't about pretending nothing hurt. It's about deciding, I won't let this hurt define me anymore. If you're still carrying pain, still replaying moments in your mind, still waiting for the apology that may never come, this is for you, dear you. You don't have to carry this forever. You're allowed to lay it down. You're allowed to say, I release this. I forgive this. I forgive myself. Not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more. You deserve peace. You deserve rest. You deserve a future that isn't chained to a past you can't rewrite. Let it go. Not for them. For you, with all my heart. You are allowed to be free. This was one word, one life. Lesson, today's word, forgiveness. And if your heart feels a little lighter, that means something. Just let go. I'll see you in the next episode. One more word, one more story, one more quiet turning point. Until then, stay soft, stay human, stay free. I used to think growth was supposed to be fast, like a straight line, like a ladder you climb, one step after the next. No pauses, no doubts, no backtracking. So whenever I felt stuck, or slow, or tired, I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was behind. But the truth is, growth doesn't always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like survival. And sometimes it looks like starting over. There was a time in my life where I felt like I wasn't growing at all. I was showing up, trying, doing the work, but nothing looked different. No big wins, no breakthroughs, no external proof. And I remember thinking, if no one sees my growth, is it even real? But over time, I started to understand something deeper. Some of the most powerful growth happens underground. Like roots. You don't see them, but they're anchoring you, strengthening you, making sure that when you bloom, you're ready to hold the weight of it. We're so used to celebrating what's visible. The transformation, the result, the before dash and dash after. But what about the middle, the messy, quiet middle, where nothing feels clear, but everything is still shifting? That's where real growth lives. There was a year in my life where nothing looked different. Same job, same schedule, same struggles. From the outside, it probably looked like I was stuck. And honestly, I started to believe that too. But then one evening, I was talking to someone who knew me well. They listened quietly, and then they said, "You're not the same person you were a year ago. You speak differently. You carry yourself differently. You're softer, but stronger." And that's when it hit me. Growth isn't always something you see in the mirror. Sometimes it's something you feel in how you handle life. I hadn't leveled up. I hadn't crossed a milestone. But I had learned how to breathe through stress, how to stop apologizing for needing rest, how to say no without guilt, how to forgive myself faster. And all of that happened quietly, without anyone clapping, without anything flashy, just slow, steady, inner expansion. That's when I realized I wasn't stuck. I was rooting. Preparing for a kind of growth that doesn't collapse when life gets heavy, There was a season where comparison almost stole my joy. I'd see people I knew rising fast. New roles, new relationships, new success. And I'd ask myself, why not me? Am I doing something wrong? Am I just slow? But here's what comparison never shows you: the cost, the cracks, the roots beneath the surface. You see the fruit, but you don't see the seasons that led to it. And what I learned is this: someone else's fast growth doesn't mean your slow growth is wrong. It just means your timeline is different. One day, I sat down and asked myself, what if I'm not behind? What if I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, becoming exactly who I'm meant to be, just slowly? That thought gave me so much peace, because rushing had never helped me grow deeper. It had only made me anxious. But when I started trusting my pace, I started noticing my progress. The way I handled things I used to run from. The way I responded instead of reacted. The way I could now sit with discomfort and stay calm. That was growth. Real growth. Quiet, but permanent. There was something I really wanted. I was sure it was the right step, the right opportunity. The thing that would finally push my life forward. I gave it everything. Applied, prepared, showed up with all the energy I had. And I didn't get it. I felt defeated. I told myself if I was growing fast enough, I would have had it by now. But a few months later, I learned something that changed how I saw it. That opportunity. It wasn't what it seemed. The path it would have taken me down. Would have drained me, distracted me, pulled me out of alignment with what really mattered to me. And in that moment, I realized slow growth isn't always a delay. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes life says, wait, because it knows what you can't see yet. And what I saw as failure was actually grace. Looking back, I'm grateful I didn't grow faster, because I wasn't ready for what I thought I wanted. But I was preparing, without even knowing it, for something better aligned with who I truly am. That's what's slow growth does. It gives you time to become strong enough to hold what's coming. Not just to reach it, but to sustain it. There was a time I tied my growth to achievement. If I wasn't achieving something big, I thought I wasn't evolving. But the deeper I got into this journey, the more I realized real growth doesn't always come with medals. Sometimes it comes with quiet wins. Like staying calm during a conflict, like choosing rest over guilt, like finally speaking up for yourself, even if your voice shakes. These aren't headline moments, but they are transformation. And when I started tracking those moments, not in numbers, but in noticing, everything changed. I started a habit. Every week, I'd ask myself, how have I grown this week? Not in tasks, but in how I felt, how I reacted, what I let go of. And even on the slowest weeks, I found something, some shift, some softness, some strength that wasn't there before. That simple practice taught me you don't need speed to grow. You need awareness. And you need grace. Because growth takes time. Slow growth is still growth. You may not see it every day. You may not feel it every week. But if you're showing up, if you're learning, If you're healing things you used to ignore, you are growing quietly, softly, powerfully. And if you're listening now and you feel behind, if you feel stuck, if you feel like everyone else is moving faster than you, this is for you, dear you. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not late. You are becoming. You are unfolding at your own pace. And the path you're walking, even if it's slower than others, is still valid, still holy, still yours. Don't rush your roots. Don't shame your timeline. Don't compare your season of planting to someone else's season of harvest. Because when the time is right, you will bloom. And it won't be because you hurried. It will be because you honored your own pace. With all my heart, keep growing. Even if it's slow, even if it's quiet, even if no one notices yet, your future self will thank you. And your present self already deserves it. This was one word, one life lesson. Today's word, growth. And if today reminded you that slow doesn't mean stuck, then you're already moving forward. I'll see you in the final episode of this series. One last word, one last story, one last reminder that you've been becoming something beautiful all along. Until then, stay steady, stay soft, stay growing. It happened on a day I didn't expect. I wasn't doing well. I was moving through the world quietly, just trying to get through, not asking for help, not wanting attention. And then, someone I didn't know did something I'll never forget. It wasn't big. It wasn't loud. It wasn't expensive or impressive. But it reached me. Right in the middle of my silence, right in the middle of my loneliness, they offered something I hadn't realized I needed: kindness. And that moment, that one small act, changed something in me. I was sitting at a cafe, head down, mind spinning, eyes tired from holding back too much for too long. I wasn't crying. I wasn't visibly breaking. But inside, I was falling apart. And then the server, just doing her job, walked over, placed my drink down, and said quietly, "Whatever you're going through, I hope you get through it." That's all. One sentence. Soft, simple, uninvited, unexpected. But it broke something open in me, not in a painful way, but in a healing one. I looked up, and for the first time that day, I remembered I'm still human, and someone sees me. It wasn't therapy. It wasn't a miracle. It was kindness. Real, raw, quiet. And that single moment became a thread I held onto for the rest of the week. Because sometimes, that's all it takes. That moment in the cafe didn't fix everything, but it reminded me I still had something to give. A few days later, I saw someone else, alone, quiet. That same tired look I had carried not long before. And without thinking, I offered them what had been given to me. A simple sentence, a kind tone, no expectation, no drama. Just presence. And I watched their eyes soften, just like mine had. That's the magic of kindness. It doesn't have to be big to be powerful. It doesn't have to be perfect to be healing. It just has to be honest. You never know what someone's carrying. You never know how close they are to breaking, or how long they've been holding everything together with a smile, sometimes Kindness isn't just nice. It's necessary. It's the thing that helps someone make it one. More day. There was a day I didn't say something kind. I saw someone struggling, not physically, but emotionally. You could see it in their eyes. I noticed. I felt it. But I said nothing. I told myself, it's not my place. I don't want to make it awkward. They probably wouldn't want to hear from me anyway. So, I walked away. And to this day, I still remember their face. Not because they asked for help, but because they didn't. And I still knew they needed something soft, something human, something kind. That day taught me something important. Kindness is not just a feeling, it's a decision. And sometimes, the hardest decision is to speak. When the world teaches you to stay silent. To look someone in the eye when most people look away. To say the kind word even when it feels inconvenient. It takes strength to be kind. Not surface level nice, but kind. Kind when you're tired. Kind when they don't deserve it. Kind when no one's watching. Kind when your ego says, don't bother. And that's the kind of person I want to be now. The kind who says something. The kind who shows up. Kindness isn't weakness. It's not the same as being passive, or people-pleasing, or saying yes to everything just to avoid conflict. Real kindness is strength. It takes courage to be kind in a world that often chooses cold. It takes self-control to stay kind when someone is pushing your limits. Kindness isn't what you show when everything is going well. It's what you give even when your day is heavy, even when you're tired, even when it would be easier to look the other way. There have been moments where kindness could have cost me my pride, but saved someone else's dignity. And that's the trade I'll choose every time. Because the truth is, kindness doesn't weaken your boundaries. It strengthens your character. It's not about letting everyone in. It's about letting yourself stay human. Even when life gets noisy and hard, kindness shaped my relationships. It softened tension. It opened doors to conversations that wouldn't have happened otherwise. It healed little misunderstandings before they became big scars. And the amazing thing is, people remember how you made them feel, long after they forget what you said. And kindness, it always leaves something behind. There was a message I got once, months after a conversation I barely remembered. It simply said, I don't know if you realize this, but something you said that day saved me. I was in a really dark place, and your kindness gave me one more reason to stay. I sat there holding my phone, speechless, because I hadn't done anything big. I didn't have the answers. I wasn't trying to rescue anyone. I was just kind, present, gentle when they expected silence or distance, and somehow that was enough. That message changed me. It reminded me that you never know what your kindness is doing. You might not see the result. You might never know what it meant to them. You might forget the moment altogether, but they won't, because kindness is a seed. You plant it, and it grows quietly, sometimes far beyond what you ever see. It's not about applause. It's not about being remembered. It's about being real, being compassionate, being available for just one human moment. Because this world, it's starved for kindness. And one soft voice, one gentle gesture, one moment of eye contact, and truth might be the thing that gives someone the strength to keep going. Kindness may not get headlines. It may not be loud. It may not be flashy. But it matters. It changes the atmosphere of a room. It softens walls people spent years building. It reminds us, in a world full of noise, that connection is still possible. And the people who are kind, even when they're tired, even when they're hurting, even when it feels like no one notices, they're the real ones. So if you're listening now, and you've ever wondered, does my kindness even make a difference? This is for you, dear you. You may not always see the impact, but I promise your softness is never wasted. Your warmth reaches places you can't imagine. Your kindness is a ripple that keeps moving long after the moment ends. You make people feel safe, seen, worthy. And maybe you've never been thanked properly. So let me say it here, clearly. Thank you, for being gentle when it was easier to be cold, for being patient when the world was rushing, for being kind, even when no one clapped for it. With all my heart. Don't stop. We need you. This was one word, one life lesson. Today's word, kindness. And if this episode reminded you of the power you already carry, then your kindness just grew one layer deeper. Thank you for walking this 10-part journey with me. From patience to courage to growth to today, you've grown, you've reflected, and you've stayed present. One word at a time. Until the next story, the next moment, the next turning point, stay kind, stay true, *, stay human.